Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different. I have all this old footage from a lot of big pieces that I did a while ago, and I kept it. I always wanted to make YouTube videos out of it, but instead of just doing a basic speed drawing video, I'm gonna go ahead and do another review slash critique video because these are very old pieces, some 2, some 3 years old, and I think I've improved quite a lot in that time span. So we're just going to watch the speed draw. I'll make some commentary on what I think was going through my head at the time, what I would do differently now, that sort of stuff. As always with these speed draw videos, I have that photosensitivity warning up at the bottom there. There is going to be a lot of jumping and flashing images, so if you are sensitive to that, the canvas to the right-hand side is going to be the still image, whereas the one to the left is going to be flashing around a lot. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So we're just starting off with the blue line sketch, as always. This picture is just going to be a girl with her cat in her lap next to a window. I wanted to play with some lighting effects on this one, and I really wanted to do this in a very like Japanese anime style, which is a style that influences my art for sure, but I definitely never do anything specifically in that art style. And I also wanted to do some background work on this one as well. I think personally this style is not super cohesive with my usual style. I think it's just a little too exaggerated for me, but I wanted to try and give it a go anyway. Now, the hands here, this is still a technique that I use where I do that sort of flat pancake shape for the base of the hand, draw the 4 circles where the fingers would be protruding out of it, and then draw the fingers. However, what I do now is I will draw each segment of the finger, the base, the middle, and then the tip, and then I will outline over those segments. Whereas in these old pieces, a lot of the time I'll just sort of sketch out the finger in the place that I think it's going to go. I drew a little pause button there to remind myself to cut the footage and then didn't do that. And the segmented fingers just end up looking a lot more proportional and a lot more realistic than just having these sketched out forms. So another thing I wanted to do for this piece, and you can see it very clearly in the hair here, is I wanted to do needle thin line art because I noticed that was very prevalent in a lot of Japanese media that I had consumed. And I wanted to do something very, very different from an art style that I usually work with. And as you can tell from a lot of my pieces, I do very, very heavy, very weighted line art. I really like that heavy comic book feel. So I just wanted to try something different with the thin line art here. If I were to redo this piece again, I think I would still keep the line art a little thinner, but I would definitely try to add some weight to it in the more shaded areas. For example, I sort of did it on the eyelids where the line is a lot thicker to show the eyelashes and the shadow above the eye. But I would also do that to the character's left side because the light is coming in through her right side through the window, just to give a little more interest to the line art itself. Let's see here, we're just doing some work in the background right now, and I honestly haven't improved at background work at all. I think I would have focused a little bit more on the foliage outside of the window. Maybe pull up some references for that. Again, there's that pause button. That's something I used to do on these old videos when I took long pauses for whatever reason. I would draw a pause button on the screen to remind my future self to cut that portion out of the video for the speed draw. But then the speed draw is going so fast that you don't even notice the pause anyway, so I just left it in. Again, going in with the block coloring. Yeah, there's not much different I'm doing right now. I'm definitely coloring it in with a lot more vibrant colors than I would normally use. I usually work in just very desaturated colors, and that's just an art style preference. Desaturated versus really vibrant saturated colors. It's not something that I think I should or shouldn't change. It's just the preference that I had for this character. The shirt color that I'm putting in now, I know is going to change by the end of this. I remember having a lot of issues with color theory on this one. It just wasn't working out properly. And I do think I've gotten a lot better at color theory since this point. So that's just something that requires a little more practice, a little more research, and you'll get it eventually. So you'll see this a little more as the piece progresses, but I wanted to go over it now just as I was thinking about it. Something I've definitely learned in these past few years just focusing on art is when I get stuck with colors and what kind of colors should go on a piece, I like to sort of refresh my memory of color theory and the complementary, analogous, split complementary, those kinds of colors. And I find it really helps with choosing colors, especially for characters that you don't draw very often, so you don't have set colors defined for them. And it also helps putting your usual characters who do have set colors, it helps to put them in a space that will fit their color scheme just by referring to and refreshing your color theory a little bit. The example on this one is the character is definitely a very cool pink right now, and I think the outside definitely leaned towards a cool green. So I was almost on the analogous color side of the color wheel, but I was missing a lot of blues and purples in there. So what I decided to do is I decided to keep the outside a cool kind of true green and then warm up the pink on the inside to get to a more neutral reddish pink area, and just brought it into the complementary colors portion of the color wheel. And I think that just helped out with the composition of this a lot. I don't think that made any sense what I just said, but at least color theory is something that I know I improved on. Just going in with the block shading here, this is something exactly the same. I do it every time. I think what I would have changed on this one in particular is that one stripe of shadow across her left side of her face. I think I would have maybe done just a little more contouring on that to make it look like her face is a round shape instead of just like a flat piece of paper, which is what I'm kind of getting now. I remember really struggling with trying to draw these headphones for some reason. I wanted to get that like fun glowing color and I just didn't achieve that. And I think the reason for that might be, even though I tried everything to get this really glowy effect on the light itself, I didn't do anything to the surrounding areas to show that reflected light. So if I were to do this again, I would add some pink highlights to the tops of the hair, to the buns in the back behind it, and to the headphones itself to sort of give the impression that it is shining light onto something instead of just being a light source and not having that light source go anywhere. All right, this is something I've definitely improved on. It used to take me absolute ages to shade hair because I would go in and shade every single little piece to make sure I got as much detail and as much texture out of that hair as possible. I think I'm even going in twice here. I'm going in with a light shadow and then a darker shadow behind that to really make sure I've got that contrast in the hair. And realistically, unless you're drawing a super, super detailed piece to begin with, you don't need to do that. So especially with this one where I was drawing it in an anime style, I should have gone for the simpler shading and then just a regular highlight layer on top of that, and that would have given me more than enough to work with as far as the hair goes. Now the shirt here, again, way too much. I'm doing all these like wrinkles and stripes in the fabric, and I think on their own they do look decent. But put on this fabric, it makes it look sort of like a bed comforter. It doesn't look like something that this person would wear. It's just too much. It looks puffy because of all these stripes of fabric on it, and not in a good way. All right, so we're moving on from cell shading, going into the softer shading. There's a lot of anatomy issues here right off the bat. I'm not even going to go into it. That's just something that you get better at with practice and with reference, certainly. And I have gotten a lot better at it with practice, with studying references, stuff like that. The highlighting. So at this point, I was obsessed with the luminosity layer, or I think it's called the add layer in Photoshop. I thought it just gave like a beautiful, stunning highlight. And it can be used in moderation, but this was just way too much. That highlight on the side of her cheek there that almost looks like she's greasy wet. No, it's not working out right. I also think I'm just highlighting with a plain white layer here, which is also not great. I was trying to get it just as shiny as possible. And then I adjusted it to more of a yellow color to hopefully give a little warmth and reflect the sunlight coming in from the outside. Speaking of which, here comes the part that I had been avoiding for the entire piece, actually drawing the foliage outside. I should have just pulled up a reference. It would have been so much easier than trying to do all these like really fine details in the leaves, but I think it turned out okay. It was just too much work overall. So what I did here is I drew in the branches first, and then I drew in some individual leaves, and then I just copy pasted that a bunch of times to get like a little bush in the middle there. And then just going really simple with the background. I think I blurred it out and just put some light rays sort of coming in through the window to add a little bit more environment into the room, sort of tie it in from the outside. A little more futzing around with the headphones there because I still wasn't satisfied with them. I really think adding that cast highlight would have helped a lot. And then just a few more final details. I think I was cleaning up the highlight, making it a little less intense, and that's the final piece. Oh, I did change the color of the sweater there, like I was saying earlier. But this piece, I did use it in a lot of my like online portfolios and stuff like that. I thought it showed some good environmental work, but I've slowly been phasing it out because I just don't think it's that good of a representation of my art style today. There's a lot of anatomical issues. There's a lot of lighting and shading issues. When I did finish it, it wasn't exactly the piece I was the proudest of, but I did display it a lot just because I had spent so much time and effort on it. So that is a review of an old piece of mine. This one was done sort of early to mid 2021, so it's about 2 years old at this point. I do think I have improved a lot in those 2 years, and if you would like to see some of my more recent work, you can find me on Patreon, Instagram, TikTok, and now on Twitch. It's Threadwing on all those platforms. And make sure you subscribe to this channel so you'll be notified next time I post a video. Bye!